So this one's more of a quick update video. So we'll start with this key. I suppose you could call it a key. Fitted to Bantam Cock's superheater header with what is comically the spanner the same size as the length of a boiler barrel. I now have a good purchase on that. Otherwise it was a round header which I had no hope of getting hold of. So this is now bolted on using the bolts that came out of the superheater, and I can now get a good purchase. So next thing to do is make something to hold this end, and then we can break her away. I'm not overly fussed if I end up knackering the main pipe. It's just a bit of threaded pipe at the end of the day. We can make a new one and rethread it. I just need to get it out. I've tried doing it in situ as was suggested to me, but either I don't have the right tools or my method of doing it isn't quite right, and there is no way I can get that nut off without dropping it into the boiler, and likewise there's not enough room to get a new spring on there. So we are going to keep going with the method of take the whole thing out, completely refurb it, put it back together. I know it's a lot of work, but I think the end result of a regulator that actually does what it's supposed to will be worth it. Another little side project, these used decking boards. We've used these for shuttering, and now they were just going to be got rid of until we realised they are almost the perfect size to use for sleepers. So I'm in the process of cutting these down into 12-inch lengths by literally just the half width. You can get about 4 out of one of these. And then I've acquired some second-hand rail, 16mm alley section, same as the PMP type stuff and that everybody uses. And we're going to knock up a 2.5 metre track panel. For a couple of reasons. One, I want one for the garden. Two, I want to try out this bolt down method, see how easy it is as a trial run for a interesting future hopeful project. And because it saves burning or getting rid of the wood. Recycling. About the only time you'll hear me mention that on this channel. So I'm going to go and cut the rest up. I don't know how many I'll get done today. This might be next video before you see any more of it. But it's a start on that project. So this is the method of construction so far. I've 3D printed some gauges. There's a third one up there. You can see they've got the 7 1/4, 5, 3.5, and we're going for 2.5 just because I can, and I want to see if I can fit it. If I can't fit the 2.5 rail, oh no, what a shame. However, these are roofing bolts with the rubber washer underneath that grips this track rail really well. It could have gone for 1 inch, I should have gone for slightly longer sleepers, but for the purposes of this trial and out here in the garden, that is more than adequate. They're 12 inches long. I should have gone for 14 really, but there you go. This is why we experiment. Right, I'll carry on and I'll show you once the 7 1/4 is all laid, and then I might even time lapse getting the 5 inch down, who knows. Right, that is 7 1/4 panel complete. It's a 2.5 metre long panel with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 sleepers. There are 9-inch centres. So if I can find somewhere to clip my phone up, I might now time lapse getting the other rails in. Okay, so the 5 is down, so I think it's time. I mean, I've got a 7 1/4 wagon, but it's a bit buried, so I think it's time to rescue our 5-inch wagon and show this track a bit of rolling. Yeah, as a first movement, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, which means my gauge worked. So, to continue the experiment then, to the 3.5 rail. Three and a half done with Bantam's tender as a test vehicle. That looks fine to me. So, can we go one more, just for giggles, and get a 2.5 in there? Not that I've got anything 2.5 to test it with yet. So the answer is no, I cannot get 2.5 in there with this method exactly. The only way I can get 2.5 in there is with a slightly different gauging tool that held the 3.5 in place and the 2.5 in relation to the others. So it held both sides of the head of the rail rather than just the inside of it, the gauge. Then you could use the inside 3.5 screws to jointly do the 2.5 rail. There's just not enough in there to get 2 screws in. I can't even get the 2.5 rail in the right place because of the washer and the head of the bolt. But that being said, as a 2.5 was always a push of it anyway, let's be honest. But the 7, the 5 and the 3.5 is a winning solution. Yes, we know the sleepers could be wider, but it's plenty strong enough at 9-inch spacing. There's nothing wrong with that. This path isn't the flattest or the smoothest, so it does bend, but that is also fine for the purposes of a garden testing. So we could use this method with these fixings to go bigger. So I will be inventing a similar to the Ride on Railways quick joiners, but one that can do all 3 gauges, but not need all 3 gauges. So then I could join it to the PMP panels, but that's later on. Okay, just to finish up then, so you saw me using them in some of the previous clips. These are my 3D printed track gauges. So if I use these, which you'll see what these are off in a minute. On the outside there we have 7.25, then we have 5, then 3.5, and I went one further, which as you've already heard didn't work, at 2.5. And then there's 3 of these. They took all of, I think, 10 minutes to print all 3. I mean, ideally they could do it being a little bit deeper. I went with 5mm just because it was easy numbers. If I printed them again, I'd maybe extend them to about 8mm or something like that on the drop downs. But they worked, as you saw in the clips. Use the Ride on Railway track connectors, which is what these are. These are spare of these plates. These are slightly rusty, but they are just in mild. There's nothing special about them. But they work really well. Essentially, you swing these round to the outside. No, these have got a bit of movement on them. You push the rail up to these plates. You basically clamp. These are slightly bent up as well. And you basically clamp the foot of the rail under there and then do these down. These are fixed and hold it at gauge, and the ones on the outside are actually welded. These ones you have to fit yourself, because the holes are slightly offset for different rail profiles. These are what I say I'm going to design up and draw up a slightly different version of, that's capable of coupling all 3 gauges that I've got on the panel. So it does need a slightly different method of working, and I'm thinking of, instead of 2 on each side, just 1 that goes even if it's on the 2 bolts, but just one lug essentially, one plate that lifts up and down. So rather than camming, it's just fixed. You lift it up and down, almost like as if it was another one of them that just clamps down over it. And they work really well. Okay, so I hope you find some of this vaguely interesting. As I've kind of mentioned, there's a lot going on in the workshop at the moment. We're not forgetting Bantam, but work can now continue on Bantam. So you saw me at the start of the video with the nut on the superheater. So all I need now is machine up a fork thing that sort of holds the regulator body. Which, thanks to Tom Parham, I've now got boxes of metal of various descriptions. So I now actually have a piece of metal to make the fork out of. So that'll be next. And probably the video that follows this, to be honest. Unless the wagons come out to play in the meantime. Right, thank you. Hit subscribe to see that. And I can't believe there's like 330 people who watch these videos. Thank you very much.